is a lot going on at the Heart of Texas Fair and Rodeo. One of the big events coming up this weekend, the Running with the Bulls 5K. Ashley Holcomb has more.
Good morning. We are here at the Heart of Texas Fair and Rodeo, and I have Joe Mask here with me. The Bull and Heifer show is going on right now, so he's going to kind of give us a rundown of what to expect and what's going to be going on today. So Joe, tell me, what can we expect at this Bull and Heifer show?
Well, this morning we have our American Brahman Breeders Association, one of our sanctions point shows here. Stuart Watkins is judging the cattle this morning. We had our group classes this morning first. Then we went into our Red Bull show, then our Red Female show, then we'll go to our Gray Bulls and then our Gray Females. So we'll have a full day of showing Brahman cattle in our open show today.
Awesome. And you told me that you're not only a breeder, but you are also a judge. Give me a little bit of your background. What got you into this?
So I've been fortunate enough to be in this breed since I was 12, growing up through 4-H and FFA, and then just have a love for these cattle. And so we have an operation ourselves, plus I have a little girl that shows now that's 12 years old. And so passing that love on for the Brahman cattle. And so we were fortunate enough to bring both Reds and Grays today, so she'll have a fun time of showing.
That's awesome. So what do you look for as a breeder?
So just like building a house, we look from the ground up. We want to make sure that we've got a good foundation on these cattle from their feet and their legs all the way up to their body. We want to make sure they have plenty of capacity of rib. We want to make sure they have meat and muscle in them, as well as we want our females to look like females and our bulls to look like bulls. So we want those cattle to have some ruggedness, especially if they're a bull. But then when we start looking at Brahman cattle, we want to make sure they have some breed character. And we want to look at the hump design, the hump placement, their underline, because we want to make sure these cattle not only perform in the show ring, but they can perform 10, 12 years later out in the pastures or wherever they're at.
Right, and as a judge, do you kind of look for the same thing, or does that kind of get mixed up?
It's always the same thing for me. I like to look at cattle from the ground up because I want them to be functional. I want them to have longevity. Because as I said, with these cattle wanting to live, having these cattle for 10 to 12, 15 years, we want to make sure that they're still functional when they get up in age as well. So from the ground up, they've got to have a good feet and leg structure. And then from there, the body and the capacity and the meat and the muscle and then the breed character. So when we breed these cattle, we know that we can transfer that generation to generation.
Yeah, so, and you mentioned that your daughter is here with you and she's kind of been a part of this whole process with you. What's that? Give me a little bit of what that is like.
So as a former ag teacher and county agent, these projects, whether we're showing the open show or junior shows, is a family project. And so we're in the barn together, we're traveling together, a lot of windshield time. So we get to talk, we get to, I know what's going on in school, I know kind of what she's thinking, as well as we bounce ideas off of what we're going to do in our breeding program. And so, she enjoys it. She's had the success of winning in some of our shows, awesome. and that keeps going. And so it's not all about winning, though. It's about the life lessons that we gain as a family, right. And as we also pass on to our friends and family that we get to travel with. And so we're fortunate enough to travel with some great folks that we, all over. And it's that camaraderie that we have together.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit, just elaborate, what is it like to see, your little girl kind of pass the torch to her and see her, win, also maybe even take a loss well? What is that like?
Well, I think you always want your children to have it better than you had it. And I think you always want them to be more successful, and she has been. But I think that it's also important, and I don't like the term winning and losing. I like the term winning and learning. Okay. Because I think that when we lose in a show ring or whatever, we're learning in life. Because life's not always fair, and sometimes we're going to get knocked down. But this is one thing that teaches them that, even if you're not successful like you think you ought to be, it's still another day. And there's another day out there.
Awesome. Well, fingers crossed for you, Joe. Hopefully you guys are winning this morning. And thank you so much for, your insight and everything. You kind of gave us the full ropes of what's going on today. We really appreciate that. Well, thanks so much, Joe. Welcome. And we'll toss it back to you, Ann, in the studio.
All right, thanks. Well said there. Thank you so much for that report.